Aha, that time it worked. Alright guys, what is going on? We are back as promised this evening. A new Federalist Papers letter. Before we get started, I've been given a lot of helpful feedback recently. Several of my female colleagues and friends and so on and so forth have informed me that red in that light is not a good color for me, so quit your complaining. It's gray. There you go. There's that. And two, also several people have informed me that I don't pull off the hoodie look well. I wasn't informed that there was a hoodie look. That's new to me. To quote my favorite Christmas movie of all time, these are garments. Garments are purchased by the human race to be used as protection against cold. Once purchased, they may be used indefinitely for the purpose for which they were intended. It's a hoodie. I'm in a garage. It's cold. It's cold. It's not cold right now, but I mean, it's cold. Cut me some slack, okay? I have hoodies. I'm cheap. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, anyways. Moving on. Thank you for the helpful professional critiques, shall we say. Thank you so much for that. It's great. Anyways. Moving forward. Okay, the Federalist 2. Written by John Jay. Look. He has valid points. I can't argue his points. What he says is truth. I have a problem with people who use 6 sentences to convey a point that could have been conveyed in 1 sentence. It drives me insane. Right up the wall. I don't like superfluous. I don't like fluff in my reading. It's just one of those things that if I'm reading something, I want to get to it and get to the point. So I've read about halfway through letter 2 here. It's a little bit longer, but at the same time, we're going to cover it in 2 days, I think, because verbally, in the written word, I suppose, it's longer, but the points are fewer and far between. Still valid, but fewer and far between compared to what was going on. So, Federalist 2, concerning the dangers from foreign force and influence. When the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question which in its consequences must prove one of the most important that ever engaged their attention, the propriety of their taking a very comprehensive as well as a very serious view of it will be evident. What? It's freaking serious, and we need to make sure that we take a long time to figure out exactly what it is that we need to evaluate here. We need to be serious about it, and we, again, to use this word, comprehensive. We need to take our time and freaking think about all the aspects of this, and we need to do it seriously. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite power. Now, this is every argument I've heard against the Federalist Papers, or to try to bolster the strength of the federal government. They love to quote this. Well, he said... Okay, yes, he said it, but what is he saying? He's not saying that the federal government needs to trample our rights and destroy our as he put it, natural rights. He later refers to them in a different... I believe it's him. He later refers to them as God-given rights. He's not saying that we have to completely trample these. He's saying that we have to cede some of this. We have to concede a little bit of it. We have to be... If we're going to have a government that is not founded as a religious theocracy, then you have to give up a little bit of your power, a little bit of your rights, your personal rights. And that's just a fact. If you're going to have a government, you have to fund it. God-given right, I should be able to keep what I earn. I should be able to maintain the entirety of my harvest, whether it be materialistic or whatever and all that. And that's a great thought. That's a wonderful utopian idea that gives you warm fuzzies and just makes you, God is the pink fluffy bunny of love and all this. Here's the thing about that, though. If you have a government, it's not realistic, because guess what? You have to fund the government. There has to be some level of funding of the government to whatever extent. To the extent that it is today? No. Nowhere near. if you want to look at realism in my perspective of what we're talking about, congressmen shouldn't be making 6 digits. A congressman should be making like what an E5 in the United States military makes. That, I mean, what do they do? What do they do? They don't do anything. They go up there and they voice the opinions of the people. It's really not a hard job when you get right down to it. So don't blow that out of proportion. Don't blow that sentence out of proportion. He is not in any way, shape, or form advocating what we have today. He is simply stating a fact. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant. He himself isn't a huge fan of it, as you'll later find out. He's just making the point that yes, this has to happen in order to feed the beast, so to say. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interest of the people of America that they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, than that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies and give to the head of each the same kind of power which they are advised to place in one national government. Again, also blown out of proportion. A lot of people like to say, see, he says one federal government, that's it, one federal government. No. He's not saying ignore the state governments. He's saying that if we broke into multiple confederacies, into multiple sovereignties, you would just have multiple of the exact same thing that we're talking about having here. That's all you're doing. You're not limiting anybody's power, you're just making those powers into separate, smaller groups. It's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to break into multiple confederacies that have the exact same government that we have here, why wouldn't you just be one? This is stupid. He's not saying ignore the authority of the states. He's saying breaking the federal authorities into multiple federal authorities that accomplish the same goal is stupid, which it is. It has, until lately, been a received and uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. But politicians now appear who insist that this opinion is erroneous, and that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, we ought to seek it in the division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignties. However extraordinary this new stop. Hang on, we're going to go back. We're going to start that sentence again. Going back to what was just said before, confederacies and sovereignties, again, I hope you're following along, because I'm not going to reread it. Again, another point that likes to be picked apart. Firmly united, the wishes, prayers, so on and so forth, but politicians, so on and so is erroneous, and that instead of looking for the safety and happiness in union, not in a union, he's not talking about safety and happiness in a government, in a particular type of government or particularly powerful government. That's not what he's saying there. Pay attention. He is saying, and happiness in union. Being happy in our unity. All he's saying. No need to read deeper into that. A lot of people like to. You don't need to. Now, going back, however extraordinary this new doctrine may appear, it nevertheless has its advocates and certain characters who are much opposed to it formerly and are at present of the number. The concept of breaking into smaller confederacies is gaining ground. Whatever may be the arguments or inducements which have wrought this change in the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen, it certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets without being fully convinced that they are founded in truth and sound policy. Don't jump on board just because certain people are jumping on board. Read it for yourself, review it for yourself, and figure out what it is that is the truth of the nature of these principles, these new ideas that are coming up. And now we get really, really, again, to use the word superfluous. Bear with me. We're going to get through a couple more paragraphs and be done with today's video. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distinct territories, but that one connected, fertile, wide-spreading country was the portion of our Western Sons of Liberty. Providence has, in a particular manner, blessed it with a variety of soils and productions, and watered it with innumerable streams for the delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain around its borders, as if to bind it together, while the most noble rivers in the world, running a convenient distance, present them with highways for the ease of communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation of exchange of their various commodities. That whole paragraph is to say, our country, the United States, what they had of it at the time, is so well set up to be unified. We can traverse it easily. There's rivers. There's different areas where different things are going to grow better and certain commodities are going to be more prosperous. And then we have these great river systems that allow us to connect it and trade it. He's literally saying this land is not set up to be divided. This land is set to be unified in a way that is rather uncommon, especially for folks of European descent. The natural landscape of Europe provides divisions, and it makes things set up very differently for at the time the types of governments that they had there. Here we have a whole new landscape, both political and topographically. So something to be considered right there. With equal pleasure, I have as often taken notice that Providence has been pleased to give this one connected country to one united people, a people descending from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, not separation of from church and state, separation of church and state. Big difference. I know I said that wrong, but you get my point. The same answer, speaking the same, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint council arms and effort, not these arms, he's talking about guns, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have nobly established their general liberty and independence. We are united. We are of a common mindset. We have a people here who, at their cores, are similar, which is a huge issue with the way our country works today as far as immigration and things of that nature. We're not of one mindset anymore. Granted, we have expanded far beyond what the founding fathers have ever thought, but the truth is their core principle was to have an American mindset. What he's talking about here in these readings, in these passages, is the mindset of the people at the time, and it's important that be maintained. I'm not saying that you can't advance it. I'm saying that you have to keep these same goals in mind, these same concepts in mind, which we don't have anymore. This country and the people seem to have been made for each other. And it appears as if it was designed by Providence that an inheritance so proper and convenient for a band of brethren united to each other by the strongest ties should never be split into a number of unsocial, jealous, and alien sovereignties. We are united. Providence, by the way, there's something about that word providence. We're going to stop right there for a moment. Providence is always capitalized. Why? Because he's speaking to it on a religious tone. Providence in a religious context. Again, not separation of church from state or of state from church, but separation of church and state. Two separate entities that must respect each other but not cross borders. These guys were not against God by any means. A lot of New Age philosophers and all these morons that are coming out today try to tell you, oh, they were agnostic, or they were this, or they were that. No, they're not. No, they're not. They have a fear and as far as a respect of God as a deity. So, again, that's why that's capitalized, and that's why knowing English is important, because otherwise you would never know. Why is Providence? Is he talking about like the city, Providence, Rhode Island? What is he talking about? No, seriously, he's not. He's talking about the religious Providence. Basically, we are set up between people and topography to be unified. Let's be unified. We're here to be unified already. We are here for a common goal. Let's be unified. Last paragraph, then we're done. Forward today. Similar sentiments have hitherto prevailed among all orders and denominations of men among us. To all general purposes, we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen everywhere enjoying the same national rights, privileges, and protections. As a nation, we have made peace and war. As a nation, we have vanquished our common enemies. As a nation, we have formed alliances and made treaties and entered into various compacts and conventions with foreign states. We are established, folks. We are established as a union. We have done all this unified. Breaking this up doesn't make sense. Bear in mind, again, a lot of people like to try to use John Jay's letters as this is why the federal government has to flourish, and this is why the federal government must be all-powerful and blase freaking blah. Well, guess what? The same national rights, privileges, and protection. Again, none of these guys are trying to say that the federal government should dictate what rights the people should have versus the states or anything like that. He's saying that it must protect those rights. Those rights must be protected by a national unified federal government. Meaning what? Meaning that if a state tries to step in, California, and say you can't own firearms or we're going to confiscate your firearms or any nonsense like that, it is the federal government's responsibility to say no. As an American citizen, that is their right. They have a right to that firearm. They have the right to bear arms. That's what we're talking about here. Very plain and very simply. So that is where we're going to stop today. I'm going to go ahead and put a mark right there so that I know. Ding. Now, I know for those of you following around along, you're going, that's like more like 1/3 than half. What's up? Well, because again, he does this thing where it's like a 6-sentence paragraph for a 1-sentence point. We'll blow through the rest of it pretty quickly for letter 2. So that's where we're going to stop today. Thank you guys for following along and the support. I know I harass you guys a little bit about the feedback that I get. It's all good. I know you give it in fun, and I give it back in fun. That's all it is. Thank you for the support that I've received on Camvabo, facebook.com/Camvabo, CAMVABO, as well as our private group, and on Twitter occasionally. I'm getting, if you're tweeting me, don't be afraid to actually tweet me. You don't have to send me a private message. I'm not going to bite, I promise. I only bite Islamists, and even then I have to thoroughly disinfect my mouth afterwards, so I mean, I don't like it. Please, by all means, keep up the positive communication. I'm yet to have a question referring directly to the context here. Hey, can you clarify this? Or hey, what's your opinion of that? Please, by all means, put them in the comments. The comments section is there for a reason. Comment up. Say, I don't agree. I think this. I think that. The sky is red. Whatever. Cool. Do what you want to do. Let me know. I'm here for communication. And, we'll go from there. Thanks so much, guys. Take it easy. Be safe.